Oh my god, internet. Look at the buttons, would you? Look at the buttons. We're going to talk about these buttons today. Probably going to be a quick one because there's only so much you can say about buttons. But, ooh, yes, sir. Look at those buttons. Look at that polished stubby, too. We got that bright light, so should I turn that off? Are we going to be able to really see the buttons? Yeah, we can still see them, and you can see that mirror. Woo! All right, let's turn this back on, though, so we can really get the detail of the buttons. So these are by Abel Nelson, not to be confused with Chris Abels, who does the Abel's blades? I forget. He makes really fancy, expensive buttons with lots of etching. These are super fancy. Really like the look of them, but they're also affordable. These are $45 for like these super ridiculous, sweet-looking buttons in brass. So first things first, I can't really put anything in the comments below on like where to get them. The guy doesn't have a website or anything. He just kind of makes these. He does a couple different designs, but he just basically you'll see him in the different groups on Facebook, mainly the Spin Space Buy Sell Trade group, the Spin Space Marketplace. I think he might announce them or mention it in Spin Space as well. But I got the last of 4. He had 4 sets of these when he was selling them last. So I don't know how often he comes out with them, but they're super sweet. So obviously they look really good. So that's the first thing that you're going to notice. And that's the biggest reason that you would get something like this is the look that it gets. As you get more and more into spinners, at a certain point, you start needing less and less spinners, but you kind of want to be able to change up the spinners you got, right? So this is a great way to do that. So they're done in brass. The detail that's in here, I don't know how he makes them, and I didn't ask the specifics. I can't imagine that that's etched or carved with as like consistent as it is. I imagine this has to be a mold of some sort. So I'm assuming the brass is melted and poured into some mold of some sort of casting, and then the edges, I'm not sure if they're then machined down afterwards. There's definitely some machining that happens after the fact, because let's take these apart. Because the back of these is clearly machined, right? It's got a screw, but the screw is glued in there. They screw together really nice too, I should mention. It's a nice fit, and then it kind of almost cinches down, so I've had no issues with these buttons coming loose. So really dig these buttons. The other thing that's kind of neat, and I don't know how intentional it was, because when you screw them together, let's take them off real quick. Let's do it right. When you screw them together, right, here's the octopus or the Kraken face up. We turn it over evenly. It's not 100% matched, right? It's not like they're lined up, but watch what happens when you put it on a spinner. Now I found there's some variation, but once you get this tightened down really nice here. So here's the Kraken face up, and there's the Kraken face up. So I don't know if I just got lucky. My OCD appreciates that. So they're basically opposites, but as long as you flip it this way and not this way, then he's always face up. Cracking up, cracking up, cracking up. That made me crack up. So let's talk about these buttons though. So one, they look good, right? They look fantastic. They look amazing. I'm absolutely in love with them. In fact, I've always kind of liked the idea of the Kraken and kind of like Cthulhu and the octopus kind of theme, but was never really kind of obsessed with it. But upon getting these buttons and just seeing how good it looks, there's something about it where I just need to get everything Kraken and octopus that's out there now. So I'm on the hunt. So if you know of anything else Kraken related, let me know. I got some Kraken pouches as well as some new style pouches coming from Carver's Customs. Thumbs up, Carver's Customs. Love you guys. Yeah, just really loving the theme and the style of these. They're just so good. I love the design, how each tentacle is kind of going below the one in front of it. So this is obviously, in theory, its back one kind of goes in front of it, and this one kind of goes over the one behind it, and then behind the one in front of it, and then over the one behind it. It's just a really nice pattern, the way they loop over each other. So just fantastic. I don't know if this is a design from something else or his own design. I got to be honest. I feel like it looks like it's been somewhere, but I can't place it. So, but I was starting to talk about, before I started rambling and getting on a tangent, is how they feel. So how do they feel in hand? So they're definitely kind of they kind of overlap a little. Or not overlap. They're convex instead of concave, so they kind of bow up and out. and there's no lip or rim on the outside, but there's plenty of grip here, but everything's also soft and feels really smooth. So they feel great to hold in hand. They give you lots of grip. My fingers are not sliding anywhere. They got plenty of grip, even if I'm gripping pretty lightly, right? So now my fingers aren't that white from squeezing really hard, but like, they got lots of grip. They're good. They're good buttons for that. The other thing too is even though they're kind of rounded, so this has got to be, I can't imagine it's not intentional, but if you set this down, it kind of wants to wobble a little bit. You see that? But it does actually hold really flat when you kind of let off, just the way your pressure goes, but it does stay very flat for a table spin. So it still sits flat, even though it kind of, if you put pressure on it, it wants to wobble around. When there's no influence, it's flat and works for table spin. Now I should say that this is a thinner style button, so it's not going to work. I don't actually think I've tried this, but I'm 99% sure it's not going to work on something like this where you've got this style retention ring. Yeah, I can feel already that it's sitting in there. It's not going to touch, or it's not going to work. So yeah, nothing, unless you don't want it to spin anymore. So it spins a little bit like that, but yeah, it's not going to spin anymore. But if you got something that is like so, right, where you just have the bearing, it doesn't quite work on Fabian's Talisman, or should I say Spin God's Talisman, but we all know it's from Fabian, because it's just, the arms come in there just a little bit. This one, the tolerance, this is a little tight, so, but it works great on my stubby, which is what I plan on using it on, so. But if we look at my buttons are still on the Talisman. Oh boy, we're going on 6 minutes. I said this was going to be a fast one. Every time I think it's going to be fast, and I'm like, what the heck am I going to say? It still ends up being a long video. But like, you guys just look at those buttons for a second. So on this, it doesn't quite fit because of the size of the arms. So when I put it in there, you can see it kind of like rubs up against the edges of those. So it doesn't fit on there, which is kind of sad because I thought that would look pretty cool too. But I'm really happy with it on this stubby. So, and I actually have a brass stubby coming in. I picked up off the secondary market as well because I love me some brass, and I really want to be able to compare and contrast those two stubbies. So, in terms of weight difference, because it's such an iconic spinner. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about these. So, be on the lookout, be on the hunt for these or anything else from them, because these are really good buttons. They spin nice. They've got decent weight, so just spinning the button is even pretty nice. They're pretty even. You can see there's a little, if you look right at the outer rim, you can see there's a little bit of wobble in the button. You know, it's not too bad. The buttons kind of really don't want to like fall too much, so they're still pretty well balanced. I mean, they do a little bit, but not too bad. It doesn't feel weird at all. So big up to Abel and these buttons. Fantastic stuff. I'm gonna have to be on the look for all the other stuff that he does, because I'm in love with these buttons. Absolutely love them. So favorite buttons, y'all. So let me see if I can get a good one-handed spin. It's hard with this hand with the way my camera's positioned, so. Ooh, beware the Kraken. Beware the Kraken. Kisses, Internet.